In fact, I shouldn't be sitting here. This is an assumption. Can't do that. I know. Got to vote it.
Oh.
But, hold on. This is very, very interesting. Good evening, gentlemen, and ladies and gentlemen who may be watching online. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards. I've previously chaired the Major Applications Committee. However, we're now moved into the North Committee. Both the Chairman and the Vice Chairman are absent. The Chairman at last moment for a family funeral, so circumstances completely outside of his control. So we now have to unusually go into a process of electing a chair for this meeting. So that's an explanation to you. I'm sorry it can't be you. And it's also an explanation for people online who are going to wonder, why am I going to get up and walk away, and then there's going to be some other discussions. So I'll now hand it over to Democratic Services for this little bit. Thank you.
Councillor Lavery has sent his apologies, and he is substituted this evening by Councillor Edwards. However, that does leave us without a chairman. Also, Councillor Morgan isn't present this evening. He is substituted by Councillor Stead. So in the absence of the chairman or vice chairman, would anybody move a chairman for the evening?
Alex, I'll move a chairman for the evening. I move Councillor Ian Edwards.
Thank you. Any seconders? Councillor Yarrow, thank you. And could we vote, please? Unanimous. Congratulations, Councillor Lavery. Or Councillor Edwards.
Is not here.
Doing so well, wasn't I?
You were doing so very well. Colleagues, thank you very much for the confidence you have placed in me, and I will try and do my best now for the North Planning Committee. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, that is an explanation of the slight delay, and I apologise for the late starting in this. There was an overrun of the previous meeting. Again, some informal words before we start. Mobile telephones, please, colleagues, can I ask that they're still turned off? To silent new members, please turn them off. Members of the public as well. No fire alarms expected. If one sounds, it will be for real. We will be evacuating. The best means of escape was the way you came back in. Assembly point is the centre of the front of the forecourt. We will be leaving with you. We will escort you. Fire exit is the way you came in. If that is blocked for any reason, there is a fire exit at the back over there. There are forms, feedback forms on the chairs, feedback forms online as well. We do encourage you to provide those. It does help us get a little bit better. Okay. It's all in part one. Okay, we will very quickly introduce all the people around the table. Committee decision makers this evening. On my far left-hand side, Councillors Nelson, Councillor Morse, Councillor Cartera. My far right-hand side, Councillor Stead, Councillor Yarrow, Taduku, Councillor Higgins and Councillor Graham. They make the decisions. I, as Chair, will only vote in the unusual event of a tie. We are supported by professional officer team. Councillor Nicole Cameron is our legal clerk. Alex Quayle is our Democratic Services. James Rogers, Head of Planning. Meg Harani is our planning team manager and will present the applications. Syed Shah is our transport highways engineer and will give us advice on transport issues. Okay, so do we have any minutes? No, we do not. Good, right. Apologies for absence then, please.
As mentioned, Councillor Lavery sent his apologies and is substituted by Councillor Edwards. Councillor Morgan sent his apologies and is substituted by Councillor Stead. I've also have apologies from Councillor Flynn, who's substituted by Councillor Yarrow, and Councillor Oswell, who's substituted by Councillor Nelson.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest matters coming before the committee this evening? None. Thank you very much. Matters have been notified. None have been notified in advance or urgent. And I confirm that all the items will be in part one. Members of the public and those online, part one means that they're being held in public. So, there's no exclusion, there's no private matters this evening. Very quickly, this is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting. Speaking rights are those described by the Constitution and precede in the pack that were available to you. Petitioners and agents in response, they're the only people allowed to speak. 5 minutes, and I will go into some more detail when we come to that. Okay, we're ready to go. We turn now to agenda item 5, which is 52 Bushy Road. Sorry, Ms Higgins.
Sorry, Chairman. Is item 8 part 2 item, or is that final? Just a point of clarification, please.
I think it's a part 1.
That's
Public
fine.
matter.
That's
Thank
fine.
you.
Just
Thank you. No, that's fine. That's okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Ronnie.
Thank you, Chairman. This application relates to site at 52 Bushy Road, which is currently occupied by a detached bungalow. It's located at the junction of Bushy Road and Chiltern Close. The application is for the demolition of the existing bungalow and its replacement with a 2-storey, 4-bedroom detached dwelling and a 3-bedroom bungalow, also detached. The application is the subject of a petition and 7 letters in objection, and the consultation comments are set out in details on pages 12 to 14. If I could point members to page 9 and 10, which outlines the history of the site, members will note that a previous application last year was refused for 2-storey, 4-bed or a pair of semi-detached dwellings, and the refusal reasons are set out at the top of page 10. The main issue, therefore, for members to consider is whether this application overcomes those 2 refusal reasons, the first being its location in a prominent position and whether the site results in a cramped appearance and whether it's an overdevelopment of the site, and secondly, the parking provision and the width of the crossovers. In relation to the first reason, the application is now for if I can just go to the plan, this is the existing plan which shows the bungalow and its location, the Chiltern Close junction or site. This is Chiltern Close here, number 54 here. So you can see the spacing around the building at the moment, and that is the proposed. So the 2-storey dwelling detached in this position and the bungalow in this position, and these are the plans for the 2-storey dwelling and its design, and then the plans for the bungalow and its design. And this is the street scene. The main difference between the previous application and this one is that it's sited slightly further away from the boundary here. There's obviously a gap between the properties of 2 metres, whereas previously it was a semi-detached pair, and the scale of this development has been reduced on the boundary. Particularly, it was a higher development and the roof was higher as well. The distance to the boundary remains as it is, but your officers consider that the reduction in the scale is now sufficient to ensure that the openness on that corner is retained. And if I can go to the photographs, you'll see that on the opposite corner we do have this development, and this is also a bungalow on the opposite corner, and it is a considerable sized extension which is located up to the boundary. So for the reason that the dwelling has been reduced in scale particularly, and its height has been reduced, we feel that the application is recommended for approval. In terms of the second reason for refusal, if I can go back to the layout plan, you'll see that the parking has been amended now to ensure that the crossover sizes comply, and parking is provided to the rear as well of the site. So the parking provision now complies. The crossovers are of a size which is acceptable to the highway engineers. It's a shared crossover, whereas previously it was 2 separate crossovers, which resulted in a crossover of approximately 7.5 metres, and this is 4.5, which is reduced to acceptable standards. So we feel that the scheme has overcome the two previous reasons for refusal, and it is recommended for approval on that basis. If I can just go through the photographs, this is looking towards the site from Chiltern Close, and this is the site itself, and then looking towards the end of Chiltern Close. So this is the existing bungalow which is to be demolished, then the adjoining property at 54, and the existing bungalow on the opposite side of the road. And these are just sort of street scene of Chiltern Close and opposite the application site. If I can just take members through the addendum sheet, it is quite lengthy. The plan numbers are set out on page 1 and in condition 2 are incorrect, and the correct list is set out for members, and we request that those plans are substituted in the list. The Council's Highway Engineer has requested 2 further conditions, and they're set out on page 1 and 2 of the addendum. Condition 8, we're requesting that that's deleted and replaced by 2 separate conditions as set out there. And the final one, which isn't on the addendum sheet, relates to condition 10. If I go back to the layout plan, you'll see that the reason for condition 10 is the impact or the possible impact on this property here. This is there's a window proposed in this location which is slightly under 21 metres. The 21 metre requirement is a window-to-window requirement, so it's a direct overlooking distance. It's not. This is at an angle, at a considerable angle. You'd probably have to be leaning out the window to look into the window of this bungalow or this property, and we feel that that condition's not really required. So we're proposing that it's deleted in this instance. With that, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. There is a petition with this evening. However, the petitioner is not able to attend, but has asked for a letter to be included in the record. It is quite a lengthy one, therefore I've asked for it to be circulated to each of the committee members, and it's on your desks and will be included in the pack. The issue of the glazed window, condition 10, whether or not it needs to be or not needs to be, is a matter of uncertainty. And I believe that this can form lead into a sequence of events. If the eastern window of 52A is required to be obscured glazed, then there is no satisfactory outlook from the bedroom 2 of that, and therefore I would not be surprised if the application were to fail on that ground. So for me, it's quite important whether or not there is that need for it to be obscured glazed. The report said it did. The officers are now saying it probably doesn't. We don't have before us plans that accurately mark the position of the window and distances, and therefore I believe that that information should be available to you before you can properly decide whether or not condition 10 can properly be removed. So thank you. So in my opinion, rather than get into hearing from the agent and getting down the petition line, we say that notwithstanding anything you might say, until we have plans that clearly mark out that window, that clearly show us the distances, there is a substantial risk here that the application could fail, in that the main window to the bedroom would be obscure glazed. You would then be into a secondary window, the dormer, which looks onto a flank wall of an adjacent building some 2 and a bit metres away, which is not a satisfactory outlook. I would like that issue to be resolved with absolute certainty so that the committee can then make a decision going forward. And my proposal is, if members were to accept and go with me, that we deferred it to officers to visit, for those plans to be obtained from the applicant, for the measurements to be accurately taken from the window lines, so that we're then in a position to determine quite a crucial matter. That is what I believe. I'll be happy if somebody, Councillor Higgins, can take it forward.
I'll move that forward.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder on that one, please? Councillor Morse?
Yeah, I'll second. I was going to make a comment about it.
Please make a comment then. Okay, then we will include that in the offices so we will get some sight lines shown on the plans as well. Okay. Let me just turn to my piece of paper. Mr. Barrett, are you present? Sorry. With the position I say, I do not find that there's enough information before me to comfortably take this forward. And that has been shared also by colleagues. What I want to do is to defer this matter rather than hear it and refuse it, because I think that's where it would take us, is that we look at the issues that need to be resolved, which is the sight lines from the bungalow windows. Get those accurately measured and measured properly, those plans to be available for the next committee, then a decision can be taken about whether something's obscured or otherwise. That is the decision that we are about to take, okay? I will unusually allow you to make a very brief comment.
I do believe that the planning department has already discussed it. They're in possession of scale drawings with the elevation of the proposed rear window and the angle and the distances to the mark. They've got the drawings.
We only have this indication before us, which isn't particularly accurate. In terms of there is no actually window marked on it. Yeah, but I need it on the plan, okay? I'm very clear on what I need to make a decision. It is unhelpful to try and make a decision without the right information, because if we are uncertain, we would err in the side of protecting amenity, which would likely mean obscure glazing, which is likely to then mean unsatisfactory outlook, which is then likely to mean to refusal. That's why we're deferring it. We're deferring it to give an opportunity here for the best information to be provided. If you work with officers, that will be done, and it can be speedily dealt with at the next meeting. Okay? That's been proposed. Do I have a seconder on that? Councillor Morse, you are seconding. Show of hands, please. That's everybody. Thank you. Okay, we're moving speedily on to Harefield Hospital, Hillingdon Road, agenda item 6. Ms. Harley, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application at Harefield Hospital on a building which is currently locally listed. It's infilling the balcony areas to provide a 16-bed ward and 4-bed high dependency unit. It's probably easier if I just go directly to the photographs or the plans. You'll see that it is quite an attractive and unusual design of building, and it's infilling these balcony areas here. The roof would be extended over. It isn't totally infilling in such that there is a gap, the space left between these railings which are being retained and the glazing that's being proposed to infill. There is previous precedents for this infilling. Unfortunately, it hasn't been done very well, and this is it. So this is probably to show you how not to do it, and hopefully the proposals are more attractive than the previous attempts. The design has been worked up in conjunction with the Council's Conservation Officer, so the Conservation Officers are clearly happy with it, and therefore they consider the design to be acceptable, particularly with the retention of the railings and the setting back from those railings. The 106 does require that a previous permission that was granted, or part of a previous permission that was granted, is not implemented, and there is a slight changing to the wording on that in the addendum sheet, and that's set out on page 3 at the top, and so it's substituting the words "in so far as it relates to that permission." So it's just making sure that there isn't two similar provisions on the site in this particular case. The rest of the addendum sheet, we received comments from the Council's Access Officer, and the internal layout of the bathrooms is not quite as he would like, and we're proposing that a condition is added to ensure that we receive a layout which is in line with his comments. With that, we're recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Higgins.
I'd like to go with officer's recommendation, please.
Just hold you 1 second.
Sorry, there's one further correction we need to make. Condition 5C, the last word, has that's come out slightly wrong. It should be of the new glazed facade. So obviously I'd like to correct condition 5C.
Okay. Any observations, comments? Councillor Carter, thank you. Thank you very much. Proposed and seconded. Show of hands, please, on this one. That's everybody. Thank you. Application is approved. Cheers. And now we move on to number 7, Danny Martyr's School.
Thank you, Chairman. Very straightforward. If I can again go directly to the plans. The proposal is for replacement of the existing fencing. It's better if I show you the photographs. This green timber fencing at the front with railings. They are higher than the existing fencing. The existing fencing is just over a metre. The proposed railings are 1.8. And it is difficult to tell on the plan, but the replacement fencing is this element here. The wire mesh is going at the side along here, and sorry, Councillor Nelson, just behind you in this position here. So the wire mesh isn't something that would be particularly visible, particularly given the trees on the boundaries of the site. The more attractive fencing, the railings are on the front, so we're saying that that is acceptable and recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Tiduku.
I'd like to move officer recommendations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Higgins. Thank you. Show of hands, please, on this one. That is everybody, and that is passed. And we're now going to the last agenda item. The 106 planning agreements. Please do have a look at them. There is money to be spent on occasions. No, unfortunately not. Are these noted? Thank you very much. That completes the business tonight. Thank you. Good night.